Earlier this year, I had the opportunity to do one of the things I love most: take an art class. Y'all know, I am a very big nerd. I love learning and I love art, so an art class is like the crossover episode of the century. I took Justin Donaldson's 8-week gouache class, and it was mind-blowing, to say the least. I've been using gouache for several years now, but I learned techniques I'd never heard of and really deepened my relationship with the medium.
That's great, Allie, but what does this have to do with J.C. Leyendecker?
I'm getting there, give me a second. Or maybe you don't know who Leyendecker is, in which case you should watch this video first and then come back to this one. Anywho, the final assignment of the gouache class was one I was incredibly excited about and incredibly terrified of: creating a master study. We had one job to do: pick one of our favorite artists and recreate one of their works using gouache. Now, I'd been wanting to do a study of Leyendecker's work for a very long time, and this was finally the kick in the pants I needed to just do it. I chose to do a study of this piece, which I cannot find the full version of to save my life, and I have no idea what it's called. I swear I spent a lot of time trying to find the name of it, but Google was not my friend today. Anywho, I was really excited to give this a go, but there were a lot of things that could go wrong. For one, the angle of her head is kind of weird. Like, her head is kind of tilted toward the viewer, so like the proportions are a little bit wonky. I decided to do a couple small pen sketches first before sketching on my watercolor paper, because I wanted to familiarize myself with the wonky angles, as well as all those intricate little shapes in the hair. The second thing that could easily go wrong was translating the original oil painting into a gouache painting. Gouache and oils are two very, very different mediums, and mimicking one with the other could prove to be a big challenge. One glaring difference between the two is that oils are active for weeks on end, and under normal circumstances, gouache is only active for maybe a good 5 minutes if you're lucky. Thankfully, Justin taught us a lot of really great tricks for keeping the gouache active for longer periods of time, so I could attempt those smooth, oil-like transitions in the face and hair. But more on that later. The third thing that could go wrong is something that can happen to any artist anytime: fear paralyzation. I was so nervous about even trying to study this painting that I kind of had the thought,
I could just not do the assignment. I'm not like getting a diploma out of this, so who cares if I actually finish all the assignments or not?
The answer is me. I care. I didn't want to let fear win this time, so I strapped on my big girl boots and I prepared to paint. Unfortunately, one of the things that could go wrong did go wrong. I did not achieve an accurate likeness of the facial proportions. I don't know, man, the angle just really threw me off, and I didn't realize just how wrong my sketch was until like midway through the painting. Friendly reminder to step away from your artwork frequently, because fresh eyes are the fastest at showing you where the mistakes are. I mean, really, look at the chin. Anywho, moving on. So I decided to paint this all in one go. I wanted my mixes to be fresh, my paper to be wet, and the gouache to be active and workable for the whole painting process. So this meant I needed to work quickly and confidently. I set aside about 3-ish hours and used all of them to get this study done. So, what did I learn from Leyendecker during the study process? Number 1, the beauty of subtlety. More specifically, the beauty of value subtleties. Values are one of the strongest fundamentals for a reason. They help us communicate clearly and effectively with lights and darks. With value groups, we can communicate distance, let one object stand out and others recede in importance, express light and shadow. But a master like J.C. Leyendecker can go a step further and explore the subtleties of values. If you look at any of his paintings, you're gonna see some very clear value structures. You can break any one of his paintings down into like 3 values and still have a very readable picture. But if you look closely, Leyendecker's also exploring the beauty of lost edges. That place where colors are so close in value that they kind of begin to merge together. A really great example of this is the hairline in this painting. He shifts so subtly between values that you can't fully tell where the hairline ends and the skin begins. He also does this with the hue and value changes throughout the face. We do see a few strong clear shapes, especially in the shadows, but a lot of the face is made up of very, very subtle transitions. This transition from peach to bronze, or this cream to pink down here on the chin. I'm not gonna lie, I struggled with subtlety for this study. There was a lot of noodling around with the face, shifting a value here, upping the saturation there, realizing this transition was too extreme, or this one not obvious enough. Thankfully, I was using a very limited color palette here, so that did help. Limitations are a really great thing when you're going for subtle. Another trick that helps get more smooth transitions in the face and hair was pre-soaking my paper for about 12-ish minutes and then laying it on a soaked towel while I painted. My house is very, very dry, especially in the wintertime, which is when I painted this, so keeping my paper wet and the gouache activated is a really big challenge for me. I did have to re-wet the paper and the towel a couple times, but for the most part, it did stay wet enough throughout the painting process. Just popping in real quick to share that I recently launched a new thing on Patreon. Introducing the Marikey Gazette, a monthly zine chronicling my creative journey, including sketchbook snippets, new illustrations, inspirations, challenges I'm facing, and more. Since stepping back from social media like Instagram and TikTok, I've felt a lot better. My headspace is clearer, and I feel a lot more creative. But I have missed showing you guys the behind the scenes of what I'm working on, so creating this zine feels like a good compromise. If you want to check it out, it's available for both the cozy and curious creative tiers on Patreon. And without further ado, let's get back to Leyendecker. The second thing I learned from Leyendecker is the importance of balancing your shapes. And balance can mean a lot of different things. A balance of big, medium, and small shapes. A balance of angular and soft shapes. A balance of shadow shapes and light shapes. Leyendecker paints really, really good shapes and balances them all very well. Let's start with the silhouette. Already, we can see a beautiful balance of big, medium, and small shapes. We have a few larger shapes across her scalp, a rhythm of medium shapes for her bun and like that little poofy bit toward the nape of her neck. And along her face, we see this cute little dangly hair shape, a medium shape for the bridge of her nose, down to small shapes for her lips and chin. We also see a really great balance of harsh angles and soft curves. The nose has a sweeping C curve down to a more exaggeratedly pointy tip. Same with her bottom lip. It's a soft curve down to a straight line, then down into the C curve of her chin. If we look at the painting as a whole, we see these same balances throughout the piece. The shadow shape along her jawline and neck gives us some really soft curves and sharp angles, as well as size variations. Her curls are a mass of beautiful shapes. I mean, look at these! We have triangles and swooshy cylinders and this little like cornucopia shape here. But shape balance also means balancing cool shapes with mundane shapes, like the shape of her cheek crease. It's literally just an S-curve. Nothing overly exciting about that. But if every shape was as fancy as this one wouldn't really look all that fancy anymore. Like I struggled with the subtlety of the transitions of hues and values, I also struggled with the shapes, even the simple ones. That cheek curve gave me so much grief, let me tell ya. I think I struggled most with the hair shapes though. There is so much going on up there, and my nerves, they kind of got the best of me. It was really difficult because I was trying to work all over the hair at once because I didn't want my mixes to dry before I could get them put down in each spot they were supposed to go in. But I also kind of needed to work on like one shape at a time to be able to compare it size-wise to the next shape. I don't know, I thought the skin was going to be what tripped me up the most, but it was the hair. I spent over half of my painting time on the hair alone. The last thing I learned from Leyendecker during this painting might sound a little bit cheesy. I learned the importance of just having fun with your painting. No one can look at his expressive mark making throughout the hair and not think he was having a good time painting it. All these little dots and dashes and curvy brush strokes, they weren't really the norm at the time, but he didn't seem to care. He just painted how he wanted to paint regardless of whether it was in vogue or if it was realistic. The rhythms in his mark making remind me so much of like an instrumental piece of music. The sweeping curves look like swells of a violin. The long straight streaks look like notes from woodwinds, the dots feel like percussion, and the ovals feel like brass. I don't know, maybe this sounds obnoxious and way too overthought to you guys, but the rhythms he uses and the variations of marks he makes just look like music in paint form to me. He just trusted his creative intuition and had fun with it. This isn't to say that painting isn't gonna be hard sometimes, it most definitely is. If it was easy all the time, it wouldn't be all that exciting or fulfilling. But when painting becomes something you have to do, when it becomes a chore for you and not a source of joy and creative output, then what's the point? So, I learned the beauty of subtlety, the importance of shapes, and the importance of having fun with your painting. Now, how have I applied this to what I've made since then? First of all, I've stopped trying to spell out everything in my paintings. Y'all know, I really love details. I love rendering out the little things that are just not that important to the illustration. But this year, I've really been trying to embrace subtleties throughout my paintings to really shine a figurative light on the focus of the piece. For example, in the hide and seek illustration, I really tried to stay loose with the background. We're not trying to see every tree in the meadow. I just needed to paint enough to make the viewer go,
Oh, I know where we are. We're chilling in the meadow.
Same with another recent illustration that I haven't shown y'all yet, but I'm super excited to soon. I really tried to make use of lost edges and very subtle transitions toward the corners of the painting so the focus of the viewer would be pulled more towards the middle where the character is. Next, I've been trying to implement more shape balance as well as more interesting shapes in my illustrations. I tried to mimic bits and pieces of Leyendecker's hair painting techniques in my mermaid and seahorse painting, and I felt like it was relatively effective. Also with the skin on the girl on the left in the Go Fish painting, I actually think the highlight shapes turned out pretty nice. I do think I could stand to be a bit more explorative when it comes to shapes, trying to exaggerate things a little bit more, play around with balancing angles and curves, focusing more on shape language. I guess we'll put that on the list of things I want to work on this year. And lastly, I've really been enjoying painting more this year. I feel like although I've been trying some new things, my art has never felt more like me than it does now. Instead of trying to stick with a consistent style or an easy to recognize color palette, I've kind of just been doing whatever I want. I've explored using poppier, borderline neon colors, which is so not what I usually reach for. I think that color choice was especially fitting for the illustration I'll be sharing with you guys next. It's very otherworldly, I guess, and the neon actually fit the vibe really well. That said, I also really loved the color palette in the hide and seek illustration. Those earth tones and greens are some of my favorites to use, and I really did feel a lot of joy while I painted it. I've been planning my paintings less and embracing creative intuition a lot more this year, and I think that's really amped up the fun for me. It's riskier for sure, but I feel more focused and more adventurous when I paint that way. Learning from Leyendecker has taught me that when a brushstroke feels right, just make it. If the dashes and dotty spotty bits fit the vibe, throw them in there. I really do enjoy mark making, but I'm often too scared to add them into my own paintings. But slowly but surely, I'm making some marks and finding a little bit more fun in my process. So let's chat a little bit about what this month has in store for us before we say our goodbyes. First of all, I want to do a new Marikey Meadow painting. It has been a while since I did one. The hide and seek painting was from April, I think. So it's been too long. My plan is to visit a new character in the meadow, one with some very summery vibes, but also retro vibes. I hope that piques your interest. I'm really excited to get started on it soon. I basically did nothing for most of May and part of June while I was sick, so I'm ready to get out my paints again. Also, I'm going through my nurture workbook again with a new intention. I decided I wanted to make my own little 30-day challenge for myself. Y'all know I don't believe the draw every day rule is for everyone. Life happens and sometimes art just falls by the wayside. But right now, I really want to make nurturing my creative practice a daily priority. So here's the intention I set. To create one thing every day for the month of July using old scraps of paper and whatever medium I want to nurture my love and passion for my creative practice. I have so many old chunks of paper in my folder that I cut off from other pieces or just collected over the years. There's watercolor paper, sketch paper, cold press, hot press, Bristol, you name it, I've got it. I'm really tired of my supplies and my creativity just sitting there unused, so this month I'm gonna use them. I'm going to show up for my creativity each day and make something cool. The great thing about this is it can literally be anything. Like, I don't have to make a masterpiece, I just have to grab a piece of paper and have fun.
How hard could it be?
I'll give you guys a little peek at the first one. I'd been missing my dip pen, so I dusted it off and sketched a little fox guy. Also, I actually kind of like the little scraps I used for swatching the paints and testing out my nib. They're like their own little works of art. Anywho, I'm really excited about this intention, and I'm excited to see how I grow from it. My last goal for July, and probably August, because let's be honest, I don't think this one's probably gonna happen. I want to finish reading Starting Point by Hayao Miyazaki. I have absolutely loved this book so far, but it got stuck on my shelf for a couple months, so now I'm finally getting back into it. It is really, really good. Really makes you think about the animation industry and about the creative process in general, and I think it's definitely one for the art book readers. Anywho, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed learning from Leyendecker with me and watching me paint this little portrait study. Huge thank you to the Cozy and Curious Creatives over on Patreon for helping to support my art journey. Your support and encouragement are a large part of what keeps my business going and my creativity going as well, so thank you. If you're interested in learning more about J.C. Leyendecker and how he became such a master of illustration, then head on over to watch this video next. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you soon. Bye guys!